Before we jump into this episode, I want to remind you that while Caitlin and Sophia are dietitians, we're not your dietitians. This means the information shared in the Food Freedom Fertility podcast is intended to entertain, educate, and inform. It is not a substitute for medical care. This information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making any changes. Welcome to another episode of Food, Freedom, and Fertility. I am your host, Sophia Pavia. I am joined here today, of course, with the illustrious Caitlin Johnson, PCOS specialist, also a registered dietitian, also my best friend. And we are gathered here today, dearly beloved, to get through this thing we call life. We are here with Sara, who is a two-time veteran of working with me. She was one of the first gals to roll through my Fertility Nutrition Foundations course back when I used to offer that. And when I started up my group coaching program, the Pro Luteal Lab, she messaged me and said, "Hey, I know I've already worked with you, but I loved it and I want to do it again." And so she came through a second time. She's a very unique gal in that she just can't get enough of this face right here. So we were pumped when she said, when she said she wanted to come on and do this Win Wednesday and tell all you ladies her story. So welcome, Sara, and thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here and excited to have this conversation.
Well, let's just jump right into it. Why don't you give us just a clip of your fertility story, and we can get into more of the details as we roll on, but why don't you just kind of give our listeners an introduction to who you are and what trying to conceive has been like for you?
Sure. So, obviously my name is Sara. I'm currently 29, soon to be 30 in a few months. My husband and I have been married what will be 6 years this summer. And after we'd been married a couple of years, we obviously decided that we wanted to start our family, and I had been taking birth control, and I remember trying to very strategically decide when to stop taking the pill because I was certain the next month I would be pregnant. So we thought, we'll time this out how we want and stop taking birth control, and thankfully my cycles regulated immediately, but we went on to try and try and try. I would say maybe after about 6 to 8 months, I was kind of like, okay, something, maybe isn't quite right. So I did some of my own research, and honestly, I don't remember exactly what I implemented at that time. Maybe a couple of supplements. I was just kind of not really sure what to do. And of course, they always say to wait a full year before you seek, a specialist of any kind. So that year came, and I think it was September, and my husband is a farmer. We live in the Midwest. The fall is a very, very busy time. So we decided, you know what, let's just wait until November. We'll go see reproductive endocrinology. Anyways, so we, so that would have been after about 14, 15 months of trying maybe. So we went to a reproductive endocrinologist. We live sorry, I said this already, but we live in a rural location. So we're over 2 hours from a specialist. So it does take took us a lot of planning and whatnot to figure this all out. But anyways, started seeing a reproductive endocrinologist in November, and went through all of the baseline testing. And so by the time that was all done, it was probably a good 4 to 6 weeks once I had kind of done all of the blood work, the ultrasounds. I did an HSG, kind of went through the whole gamut. My husband did, I think, 2 different semen analyses. And honestly, we weren't really given a reason. They said that the semen analysis was slightly abnormal. They really didn't find anything. The only thing when I had that HSG was that one of my tubes was blocked. But what was kind of unusual is they kind of chalked it up to like, well, maybe it was just a muscle spasm. We won't really know for sure if it's blocked unless we do this again. Let's just kind of wait and see. And in their defense, like whether or not it was blocked, I don't think it was going to change the treatment plan because we were looking at doing an IUI anyways, as kind of a first step. And so they said as long as I was ovulating on the side that was open, we'll still go through with it. Anyways, and kind of this whole time I was like, I would say hesitant. Like I was just like, man, I don't know that I want to go through with something as significant as an IUI when like I really don't know the cause of this. It kind of bothered me that I was never really told like a root cause. And so now it's like approaching wintertime in the Midwest and we're going to be having to travel, significant distances. And so we're kind of just questioning like, okay, is this really what we want to do or not? But regardless, we decided, okay, let's go through with this, IUI. So I got started on letrozole. I believe I took it like day 1 through 5 of my cycle, if I remember right.
I want to take a minute out of this episode and talk to you about our partner, Fertility Cloud. We decided to partner with Fertility Cloud this season because we have worked with women all over the nation and we have heard the same issues arise again and again. My doctor can't see me for another 8 weeks. I had to wait 3 months to see a specialist, and even then, they didn't really tell me anything. Or there's no one in my small town that knows anything about my situation or can help me. And that's so common because unless you live in a major metropolitan area or a place that has grand medical universities, and honestly, sometimes even then it's still an issue, it's really hard to find fertility specialists who can give you tailored, customized help for your unique fertility situation. And that, my friend, is exactly what Fertility Cloud does for you. They offer everything you need, but right in your home because it's fully online. Another perk is they often have same day or next day appointments, so no waiting weeks and weeks and weeks in order to be seen by someone. And my favorite thing of all, really the pièce de résistance and the reason we are partnered with Fertility Cloud for this season, is they have a love and a passion for helping families grow. It is why they do what they do. It is why they wake up in the morning. It is why they have this world-class staff who cannot wait to step in and help you along your journey. So if this sounds like what you have been dreaming of, click the link in our show notes and go to fertilitycloud.com for $50 off your first visit.
So we were set up and literally major blizzard predicted in the Midwest. And we're having to travel, like I said, over 2 hours. And so we went back and forth like, okay, do we just drive to Fargo and stay for 3 days or however long? Like, we'll just be stuck there. Mm-hmm. Or what do we do? And like, I mean, it was like feet of snow predicted, like nothing that we were going to drive through. Anyways, and I honestly, like, this was totally the Lord speaking to me. Like, I just woke up one day and I was like, we are not going. Like, I told my husband, I'm like, I don't feel like we're supposed to do this. This is causing me way more stress, like just trying to figure out the travel. I'm just not ready. And I said, and honestly, like, I kind of just want to break. Like, I'm not ready for this yet. So that was in like January. The timing must have worked out perfectly, Sophia, that you were opening Fertility Nutrition Foundations like the beginning of January. And I remember you were advertising on Instagram, and I was just like going back and forth because it was like, somewhat decent chunk of money. And I'm like, do I do this? Don't I? And I remember my husband and I just being like, okay, let's just do it. Like, what do we have to lose? Let's try this and just kind of see what happens. And then like, we'll reevaluate. So I started your course and I think it was 8 weeks, 6 weeks. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly. But I still remember like it was like my morning routine. I would pull up the modules, listen to them. I was taking notes. Like it was like and I loved it. Like I was learning so much, and I just really started implementing the things in your course. I would say like probably months leading up to that, I had started to make some of the changes, but this was definitely like more drastic than what I had previously done. As far as just like really increasing my protein, being careful about carbohydrates, like, yeah. And different supplements, and same with like things my husband was implementing. So I did that course and maybe had a cycle or two within that course, and we were like, okay, maybe let's restart with reproductive and just reevaluate. Like we actually switched to a different, within the same healthcare system, but a different provider. So now this is like the first week of March, I think, and we do a video visit with this provider. Very good experience. I would say better than what we had previously. And she kind of said the same thing. Like, let's just start with an IUI. You know, she's like, I don't feel like there's anything like blatantly wrong. I don't know. It must be like their standard kind of to start there. I don't know for sure. But, so she said, send me a message on your portal when you get your period. We'll send in the letrozole, the whole thing. And lo and behold, I never did get my period.
What?
So, yeah.
I love the story already.
Yeah. So, yeah,
and I have so many questions.
Yeah, well, fire away, because that was kind of a lot in a short amount of time.
First of all, Sara, you're much more eloquent than you think that you are. And you know, I'm coming in blind here because you weren't my patient or a part of my course. So it's kind of fun to hear from the sidelines what it felt like and what you went through. But okay, so my first question you answered, I kind of wondered, and I didn't know if you'd want to share like what your closest like major metropolitan city was. So we're talking Fargo. So when you say you're rural, I'm thinking like, oh, she lives like 2 hours from Indianapolis. Like you're rural.
Yes. Yeah.
There's not like a lot.
No, we're 2 hours from Fargo and Sioux Falls, and then like 3 hours from Minneapolis.
Wow.
So yeah, no, middle of nowhere.
Right in the middle, kind of. Yeah, middle of nowhere. What is it that your husband farms?
Yeah, so he's a grain farmer, so like corn and soybeans. Occasionally,
I was ready for her to be like marijuana.
I'm sure.
One of us lives in California. Can you guess which one?
That's true.
Oh boy. The other question that I was just kind of wondering on the edge of my seat was, did they offer anything before IUI? I mean, typically with testing, they're like, okay, and even if you're ovulating on your own, most often they'll start with an ovulation induction medication, just see if we can up egg quality. So starting you on something like Clomid, you know, usually they'll do 2 or 3 cycles of something like that. I'm interested in knowing, because they thought you could have had one fallopian tube blocked. Is that why they wanted to go straight to IUI? So they could be like, we're sure it's this side that's ovulating, because that just seems a little peculiar to me.
Yeah, to be honest, they never even talked about just doing like a medicated cycle. And I don't know, like with my husband's like sperm quality semen analysis, I don't know if that, I mean, if that was obviously they thought it was somewhat of a concern. No, they never really did offer that. And I guess I didn't really question it, because I was just kind of coming in blind, like, okay, if this is what you want us to do, like, this is what we're going to do.
That's interesting. It makes sense if there was enough of a concern, and maybe that in combination with, you know, making sure that you're ovulating on the right side, maybe that makes sense. But I just love that you were able to see like something doesn't feel right and it's not just the weather. Like there's more maybe going on here, or maybe more that we could do. And that's really beautiful, because one of the things that motherhood brings is a lot of questions, and learning to kind of tap into that like internal barometer of like, this feels good, this doesn't feel good. This, I don't really know the answer, but this is against what I believe in, or, you know, however that gets framed in motherhood, there's so much of that. And tapping into that, even in like your steps toward motherhood, is really beautiful, because I think it teaches you can kind of listen to those things as you're moving into motherhood.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you made that very clear, that you felt like he was involved in giving you the right information. So that's really very beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, one of the questions we made you fill out before you scheduled this is we wanted you to say, in what ways did Caitlin or myself or our work most inspire you along your way? Can you answer that for us?
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, so prior to taking the FNF course, like I definitely had started listening to your podcast and following Instagram, and just kind of, you know, starting to pick up on like different things that I maybe should change or alter. I don't want to say that I had to like overhaul my life by any means, but like I definitely was, I think there was a lot that I still kind of had to learn. Without getting into like too much detail, I have a history of anorexia and like significant undereating, and was very underweight and without a cycle for years in high school. And I think when you have that history, some of those thoughts are still kind of in the back of your mind. And I really think that all of the information, whether it was through the podcast, the Instagrams, both of yours, or the courses I took, like I just learned so much about like appropriately fueling my body. And I just think that this was really the first time that like that was made so clear to me, just like how important that is.
Wow.
And I think like you both just do a really good job of like, it's not a diet and it's not restriction, and like the importance of making sure that we're eating adequate amounts, but also that we're eating adequate amounts of like the right things.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I just think that, that was
with a
very
weight neutral approach. Caitlin and I both strive to be very weight neutral. Like your weight may change, it may not change. Your fertility parameters can improve greatly. Weight is not the focus. Fertility is the focus.
Sara, in the changes that you learned about in the course, like how invested was your husband in the changes? Because with him having, you know, certainly a stake in parenthood, oftentimes it's really easy for us to feel like we're carrying all the weight because we will carry a pregnancy. But knowing that he had some things to optimize in the semen analysis that he had done, was he really game to make changes with you?
Yeah, I will give my husband major kudos, because he was awesome and like very on board with the changes, and like he wanted to learn kind of alongside of me. Like he was very interested in what I was learning, and we kind of just like went into it like, okay, if one of us is going to do this, then we're both going to do it. And I think that Drew knew that, like, he obviously, maybe the semen quality was affecting things. And so I think, like, that was motivating to him of, like, okay, I am part of this equation, and I want to do things to improve. So, yeah, that was really helpful that he was so game to make changes. And it just, obviously it was only us. It was just us two at that time. And so it just helped that he was on board and like we were in it together.
Yeah. Oh, Drew. We love you, Drew.
We are so glad you're enjoying this episode, and we want to take a brief moment to talk about one of our sponsors, Fullwell. Fullwell is not only a reproductive nutrition supplement company created and formulated by a registered dietitian, but they are a company that has the highest quality standards. They use the most bioavailable ingredients in the right amounts to ensure that you're getting the most out of your supplement. And let me tell you about one specific supplement, the Fertility Booster. The Fertility Booster is a combination of adaptogenic herbs and powerful antioxidants. Oxidative stress is something that occurs in every single body, and when it's accumulated, it can deplete antioxidants. Upping the antioxidants in the body by turning on the antioxidant protection system through food and supplementation is one way to support the body's free radical defenses and better support fertility overall. Oxidative stress impacts all humans, and this is one thing I love about the Fertility Booster. It helps supercharge both egg and sperm quality. You've heard about stress and how it can impact so many things in our body and how so many people just say, hey, just relax and you'll get pregnant. Well, ashwagandha is actually an adaptogenic herb, and it can help reduce cortisol levels and increase sexual function. So the next time someone tells you to just relax, you can say, hey, no, I don't need to just relax. I'm taking the Fertility Booster by Fullwell and supporting myself in this way. When we talk about powerful antioxidants, one of them that is the king of the show is coenzyme Q10. In its reduced form, it functions as an antioxidant in cell membranes and lipoproteins, helping to optimize fertility. And the queen of the show, in my opinion, N-acetylcysteine. It's a supplement form of cysteine, a semi-essential amino acid that benefits fertility via its role as a precursor to glutathione. It can also support healthy cervical mucus. So next time you're ordering your Fullwell Fertility Prenatal, make sure that you grab a hold of their Fertility Booster so you and your partner can get a healthy dose of these antioxidants and stress support. Use the code FFF20 at checkout to get 20% off your first order. And now, back to our show.
Maybe I'm blanking on this, or maybe this is the first you're sharing that part of your journey with me, but I don't remember hearing you talk about the anorexia before you ever started trying to conceive and not having a cycle for so long. I just think that's a really powerful point to make for everyone listening is like, we do recover, and that recovery is real, and you can go on to have nutrition and health goals, and it doesn't have to be a mental illness. You can do this without mental illness. And even the way that you worded that, like all the, the obsessive thoughts about food and fear surrounding food and weight gain and eating, and that's sort of always going to be a part of you. It's not like that's ever going to just go away and that will never have been a part of your past and it isn't a part of who you are today. That's not real, and that's not the goal. It's with you being who you are, who's been through what you've been through, who thinks the way you think. How are you going to move forward with that? How can you live a joyful life, a peaceful life with food, with all of those things? Because they don't go away, and you kind of have to. I have a history of disordered eating as well, never diagnosed, but I've done enough working with people at this point to where you can kind of see the writing on the wall. But like it's always a part of you. It's always a part of the way you think, but you can kind of be like, okay, thank you for that information. This is what I'm doing now. I'm going to be eating this way. I just think that that's so significant, that it's like, it's not trying to live without that and become someone completely different. It's living your life with your history.
I feel like maybe I don't think I have shared that with you, so I don't think that you just forgot. I think sometimes
There's
I feel
the big
like
reveal, everyone.
I don't know if it's because it was a good 15 years ago or so, I don't know. Not that makes it irrelevant, but I just feel like a lot has happened since then. But yeah, like you said, unfortunately, some of those thoughts don't go away. I have found what has really helped me, honestly, trying to conceive has made a big difference, because I think my mindset is and was more focused on like, these are the things I want to do to be healthy and to hopefully eventually conceive a child. Like, my motivation was so much different. It wasn't like, I need to do these things to be skinny. Like, that's not a way that I think anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm just, really focusing on like, these are the things I need to do to be healthy. And like, this is gonna sound kind of like twisted almost, but I honestly remember like those days of anorexia, like the months I wouldn't get my period, it was almost like a achievement of some kind.
Oh,
like,
I'm so good at my eating disorder.
I must be.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And like,
I know. And what's so weird is when you do get your period, you're like, oh, I'm not even good at my eating disorder. Yeah, it's so true. We're taking a break from this episode to talk to you about one of our wonderful sponsors called NutriSense. So this isn't just another health trend. This is a program that helps everyone take control of their health and fertility by making lasting changes based on their unique needs. NutriSense is loved by over 100,000 members, and it offers a unique combination of expert nutritionist support from credentialed experts with continuous glucose monitoring data insights. So it's science plus a human touch, and offers one-on-one support from the expert nutritionist team at NutriSense. So basically what NutriSense does is it gives you the support you need along with the data that you're getting from a continuous glucose monitor. Combining those two together with NutriSense offers you a science-backed way to take control of your health unlike anything else out there. It's access to the continuous glucose monitor as well as guidance from a nutritionist so that you can interpret this data and turn it into lasting results in your body. If you've listened to this podcast for more than 90 seconds, you know that we really don't believe in like a one-size-fits-all nutrition plan, and that things really need to be tailored to an individual for their personal health and fertility goals in order to succeed. And that's really what NutriSense offers. If this sounds like something you're interested in, which, P.S., you should be interested in this, head over to nutrisense.io/FFF and use the code FFF50 to get $50 off your first month with NutriSense.
I'm wondering, having an eating disorder history, not an eating disorder currently when you were going into pregnancy, did that shape any of your thoughts about your growing body in pregnancy? Like, did things like that trigger that? I wonder, for those who are kind of still in this waiting period that might have fears or concerns about what that could look like for them, if that was something you experienced and kind of what you did to reframe and get through that. I'd love to hear about that if that's part of your story too.
Yeah, that's a great question. So honestly, I was so elated to be pregnant, and like I really just wanted to like embrace my growing body, that I honestly didn't really have a lot of issues with like my body image during pregnancy, and so I was quite like nauseated for probably a good 14 to 16 weeks, and so I feel like I was just eating to survive, and so I really didn't think about it. I just ate whatever would make me feel better. And I just, I don't know. I feel like I just tried to keep doing the things I was doing when we were trying to conceive. Like I just kept eating in that way. And then I kind of got a curveball thrown at me. I ended up with gestational diabetes, which is interesting. And I think probably part of some underlying things that I probably have going on. That really forced me to, just be really diligent about my eating and exercise. And I don't know. I loved being pregnant. I loved my belly. I think just because there was many months, years that I didn't even think it was possible. And so I think I was so in awe that like my body was growing a human that I couldn't even think about the fact that my clothes didn't fit or whatever. I was just so excited.
So you talked a little bit about some of the changes that you made diet-wise, were there changes that you made lifestyle-wise around sleep, exercise, supplements you took, medications, anything else that you felt like maybe really contributed? And for Drew as well, did he make any major shifts that beyond nutrition that were helpful for you both?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, I feel like if it was in your podcast or in Sophia's course, I probably did it. But I would say like, yeah, so obviously the diet changes. Limiting caffeine was big for me. Like, I love coffee. I could drink it all day.
Yes.
Yeah. But I switched to like 1 cup of caffeinated, and then if I wanted another cup, I would do decaf, or else I just switched to like sparkling waters or other things. That caffeine was a big one for me because I was like kind of, I mean, almost an addiction where like I was drinking it all day long. My husband did not have that issue, so that wasn't something that he really had to change. We really switched up like our household cleaning products, our shampoos, conditioners, deodorants, like any type of like personal care products. I didn't do like an overhaul because I feel like that's expensive and overwhelming, but like as we would run out of things, I would just replace with like cleaner brands, whether that was a recommendation of one of you two or something else that I had read. And now we've just stuck to it. Like, we just continue to buy those things. Like, I'm trying to think what else we've done. Like, all new pans in our kitchen, like what we cook off of. Actually cooking with like butter instead of cooking spray, things like that.
The cooking spray, we're a generation of Pam people. Me too. It was like, I couldn't cook without Pam. Like, if you didn't have a can of Pam, like, we weren't cooking. There was no way.
Pam and Karen, get out of here.
Party with Pam. Gosh, so true. Yeah, it's a totally different way of eating, of living, of thinking about your body, and self-compassion, a different way of looking at everything.
Well, I know you had asked like what changes we had all made, and the interesting thing when you said exercise was I was like, man, did I change my exercise habits? And honestly, I actually think I maybe exercised less. I would say I was really drawn to like
what needs to happen.
High intensity, breaking a sweat, like burning X amount of calories. And I can remember those months of, especially like the last few months before we conceived our little guy. I really just walked, and like I did some weights, but it was nothing intense. It's just interesting how you just kind of wonder, like, you know, I don't know. Just I really changed that regimen. And I feel like my body responded well to it.
Well, I was going to ask, and you buried the lead a little bit again. Did you have a little boy or a little girl, and kind of what that was like after having gestational diabetes? I think a lot of people are always very concerned when they get that diagnosis. Like, is this going to change my birth plan? Is my baby going to have like hypoglycemic episodes after they're born? And obviously you had a running head start. Like, praise God. You like, I mean, hearkening back to that intuitively, or listening to God and making a change and laying some really good nutritional foundation to get pregnant, and then getting a gestational diabetes diagnosis. Like, you probably honestly didn't have to change a whole lot because you'd been told how to eat really well to manage your blood sugar and already implemented some of those things. But somebody listening here just got a diagnosis of gestational diabetes, and they want a little help with the anxiety they're experiencing and want to know a little bit more about that part of your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to share. So yeah, like you said, I mean, I don't feel like I had to change a ton. I definitely still, like, I feel like quite a bit of knowledge on what I needed to do. I would say like my first trimester, anything kind of went out the window. Like, I pretty much lived on carbs and whatever to not feel sick. But then after that diagnosis, yeah, I really just focused on protein, fats, veggies. I read Lily Nichols' book. I really like her and
Real food
found a
for
lot of.
We love you, Lily.
Yep.
We've had her on the show like 3-4 times.
Yeah, she's awesome. I've now read all of her books, so I actually wore a CGM.
Join the club.
Yeah. Yeah, I wore a continuous glucose monitor, which is probably not technically approved in pregnancy, but I did it. And I loved it. And I wouldn't never change that. If I end up someday pregnant again and have a gestational diabetes diagnosis, I will pay the extra money for the CGM because it was so worth it. And I would say, like, I had to be pretty cautious, definitely. My body was pretty sensitive to any type of carbohydrate, and my body responded very well to like exercise. That would definitely help my blood sugar. But as far as like food, I had to be very careful, and I was hungry. I mean, I was in my 3rd trimester. Like, I definitely needed to eat. I just really focused on fats, proteins, like I said. I didn't measure anything.
Fat, protein,
I just
and fiber,
ate
baby.
How I was feeling. And then, yeah, fast forward to, I know you were kind of asking about, what it was like with labor delivery, the birth of our son. So I had a precipitous labor, I believe is the correct term. I went into labor at home about 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. Went into labor at home at 1 a.m., went to the hospital at 5:30, and he was born at 6:59. Yeah, it was intense. It was amazing. Like, absolutely amazing. So, backstory. My background is in nursing. I worked as a nurse at the hospital. I currently work at the clinic there part-time. Otherwise, I just stay home with my son. But I didn't want to be one of those people that they sent home. I'm like, I'm not going to go in just to be sent home. Like, if this is... Yeah, I'm like, this has to be for real. And so then I started contracting every like 2 to 3 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I think this is real. Like, we probably should go. And we're 20 minutes from the hospital.
That's good to know. I thought it was going to be like a 2.5 hour thing, like you had to go to Fargo to go to the hospital. Okay, good to know.
No, we have a local hospital, thankfully. But yeah, I would say, uncomplicated labor and delivery. Amazing.
Hooray.
My son
and how's your baby?
Amazing. So yeah, he did not struggle with hypoglycemia in the hospital. They checked it. I don't know what the parameters are, but they definitely checked it more than like what they normally do. But he did totally fine.
Yay.
Never any issues as far as that goes. He was a colicky baby, but I don't think that is anybody's fault.
Just happens sometimes.
Well, what a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think our listeners probably has a very rich story with a lot of humanity to it. Thank you for sharing that with us. Caitlin, is there anything else you wanted to ask before we just thank Sara for blessing us with her story here?
Yeah, I want to know, I get to be Sophia's best friend, so like I come back for more all the time. Like, that's a choice that I do. But I think for somebody hearing, like, I took her course and I loved it and got so much out of it that I wanted to work with her again. What was that like to then go through like a group coaching experience? How was that different than the first time you took the course? And are there extra things you don't need to share in detail if you don't feel like it, but like that you've really gotten out of this second round that's been helpful for you as you guys think about maybe number 2?
Sure. Yeah. Good question. And to be honest, I think like I had a pretty tough postpartum experience, I would say.
Sounds like it with a colicky baby.
My baby was colicky. Yeah. And like I was breastfeeding, which thankfully went pretty well. I mean, great after, you kind of get through those initial first few weeks and maybe even months. But then after that, we had a great journey. I breastfed for like 14 months, which I'm happy about. Like emotionally, I really struggled. I think like trying to figure out I don't know, just trying to figure out, like, feeling like myself again. I remember breastfeeding and just being so hungry and, like, eating all the things and kind of stress eating, and just, like, I just was not really in a great place, I wouldn't say. And so, honestly, the second time around when I did her group coaching, I feel like it was more like, okay, like, I need to just, like, be grounded in this again. And, like, it took the commitment to, like, a weekly coaching for me to do that. Because I think if I would have tried something self-guided again, like, I just wasn't in a place to do that yet.
I totally hear that. I think sometimes it's that showing up again. Sometimes, whether we like it or not, a monetary investment can hold your feet to the fire. You're like, well, I just invested this. I better give it my all. And to that point, like, even if a friend or a family member wants to work with me, typically I don't anymore. I refer them on because I just think they get more out of it not having it be from a family member. But you know, even somebody that's like, I would be offended to charge them. I charge them even a little bit because they have to have a skin in the game. Like, there's just no way to do that without having some sort of an investment. And so I really respect that, because having a homework and then, you know, some showing up and it's not just being accountable to Sophia, it's being accountable to the other women that are in there and working hard at it too. And the community that you can build in that is so beautiful. And I'm sure that you really added a lot, being somebody that was coming, you know, back for round two. Like, this worked for me the first time.
Oh, definitely.
And
it was
I'm
a
sure
delight
that was
having
really
her
encouraging.
Or they just think I'm obsessed with you or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
why are you so obsessed with me? Well, I was so happy to have you double dip, and it wasn't even on my radar that that's something anyone would want to do. But you are so right, and you know, comparing the self-guided to the group coaching.
So excited to tell you that the PCOS app is sponsoring this podcast episode. The PCOS app is a one-stop shop for all things PCOS. It's also your meal guide and inspo all in one. If you love listening to me on this podcast and you feel like, hey, I want Caitlin to be in my ear every day encouraging me about how to manage my PCOS, then you have to go download the PCOS app. We have curated articles to answer questions that you have about PCOS. There are short snippets in the PCOS Answers podcast exclusive to the PCOS app. We also have recipes where I not only give you the recipe, but teach you within the recipe itself what I have done to make it more blood sugar and hormone supporting, so that you can take your own recipes and make them more PCOS friendly. If you've been looking for the Google of all things PCOS, with the filter of compassion and expertise that you get from Caitlin Johnson, RD, then you have found it in the PCOS app. Head to your Android or Apple store today, download it, and let's hang out.
Yeah, so happy to have you come back again, because you really did bring so much to these group coaching sessions, and it really warms my heart to hear that the group coaching was worth it, you know, because it's often, you know, I'm the one doing this, pouring my heart and soul out into it, and I hope that it's going well for everyone involved. I want it to do that. But to have you as sort of the case study of being in the first self-guided only to the second where there was the group coaching component, to hear how that really did elevate your experience and was really worth your while, that is wonderful to hear. So you hear that, listener? If you're on the fence about group coaching with me, do it. I want you in my group.
It's definitely the group you want to be in. I mean, if I had known you in high school, so if I would have wanted to be in your group, if you were my high school.
I mean, you kind of did know me in high school.
Out.
You knew of me in high school, but you were going to high school really far away from where I was going to high school.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
That's so true.
Well, this is another story, and this is so colorful in a beautiful way. Like, and a young marriage, I would say. I mean, compared to Sophia and I, and being as one of us did in those times, thinking birth control really was stopping something that would have happened if it wasn't around, and maybe it wasn't, because there were things to address. And a beautiful highlight of even starting with a reproductive endocrinologist, feeling like it wasn't the right fit for you right then, and listening to your gut, listening to God, and laying some really foundational nutrition support. I mean, you do not regret having that on board when you do get pregnant. I mean, it puts you, it like catapults you forward, and it gives you peace of mind if you end up being someone like Sara who has nausea and is just trying to survive through that first trimester, almost halfway through pregnancy. That you're like, okay, well, I've done some really good things, and hopefully there's something in there for this little embryo to pull from at this point. And
Totally.
Through gestational diabetes and, you know, living after an eating disorder, really, and embracing a pregnant body. That's so beautiful. I love that. Just what a celebration. Do we get to know your son's name, your perfect little guy's name?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, by the way, for saying all that. That was very kind of you. Yes, so my little guy, he is 18 months, and his name is Drake.
Drake. Drew and Drake. Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah, it's kind of can be confusing. We honestly didn't even think about it, but it's okay. It works.
Well, you're better than my parents. They named their first two children after themselves. So, like, take that.
We really stayed up all night thinking of those names.
We struggled with agreeing on names. And so, actually, Drake was a name that I really liked. And I asked my husband, and he liked it. So I'm like, okay, sold. Like, if we're not going to disagree on this one, then this is it. And we didn't know we were having a boy. Actually, we never had a girl name. So I remember when he was born, I'm like, oh, hallelujah, because we don't have a girl name picked out. And I was about 10 days early, so I wasn't really expecting a baby quite yet. So, yeah, good surprise.
I like him. Caitlin's the crock pot with Sarah, her babies. She cooks them long, and I'm the Instant Pot. I cook them fast. My babies come early and hers come late.
Mine come fast like Sarah's do.
Yeah, God bless you.
It's the way to go.
And then mine are they can't wait to be born. And then when I'm in labor, they're like, nah, I'll chill another day here. God. All right, well, Sara, thank you again for sharing this story with us, with our listeners, for sharing your heart, your family, your journey. This has been delightful, and I just want to give you our gratitude. So, listener, if you liked this episode, please rate, review, subscribe, and if you want to be on one of these Win Wednesday episodes, you know where to get a hold of us. So we would love to have you. Send us a message, and we'll get you scheduled. So thanks for listening. Hey, it's Sophia. If you love the show and want to continue your health and fertility journey using our resources, head on over to foodfreedomfertility.com for show notes, links to products and services, information about our guests, and our newsletter. Again, that's foodfreedomfertility.com. Thanks for listening.